600 Cleveland Avenue, and it's a fine old church with a semi-modern attachment that I don't think is an issue. And they've had a problem that a lot of churches in this country seem to be having. A combination of of congregations dwindling because the particular sect has somehow lost some of its popularity, and losing their congregation because everybody moved out to the suburbs and no longer wants to drive to the old location. And the city has put forward the possibility that this should become a redevelopment site, and it's covered by the TODD zoning, an ordinance that we have only rarely had anything to do with. It's kind of supplementary to the regular zoning, and the purpose of it was to foster more intensive development close to the train station than would otherwise occur. And I believe the city council already passed a resolution sending the question of whether it is in need of redevelopments to the planning board. I don't think anything is on file with the planning board yet. I certainly haven't seen it, but that's part of the problem with the building. The other part, some months ago, we became aware that they had taken out, I don't know how many, beautiful stained glass windows and sold them to somebody and put in some kind of cheap replacement, obviously without coming before us. And it was a fundraising measure. And now the rumor is they want to do this with the rest of the windows. And there's also a potential threat to the Carillon organ, which I imagine is built into the church part of the building. So it hasn't come before us yet, but I believe it will. But that's going to beg a legal question that we're going to have to tackle, which is whether the procedure that we would use, let's say for the old YMCA property, could be used here, because that's in one of the historic districts and this one is not. It's an independent landmark. So with that in mind, I'd be happy to listen to any questions or comments, first from the commission, and then I'll open it to the public. Anyone wish to be heard on it before we do that? Okay. Larry?
Yeah, I'm a former congregant of Grace Church, but have not been a congregant in many years. The windows that you're talking about were on the Cleveland Avenue side. They were Tiffany windows, as is the set immediately across from them that face the memorial garden that is adjacent to the church. The proposed sale of the windows goes back a lot longer, goes back into last year when I had some conversations with some individuals who were in charge of the church and advised them that they had to come to the HPC before those windows were removed, and we were ignored. And there was a letter from Paul Ambrose from the diocese, which I think Mr. Chairman Mickelson is aware of. Anyway, they basically said we have no jurisdiction. But anyway, the idea is that the church is going to be sold. It's unfortunate, but of course, we have nothing to say about that. The congregation, I don't believe, meets there anymore. What I think our focus should be is on the building and preserving as much of it as possibly can be preserved. The church was actually constructed in 3 sections. The first section is the one closest to 7th, which has the Carillon Bell Tower, which has historic bells in the tower. And then the middle section, which is also in that same Gothic English style. It has beautiful interiors. And the last is the one near 6th, which is called Nickel Hall, which is basically a 1950s auditorium of, as the chairman notes, of no particular architectural merit, perhaps. There is a developer interested in the property for $5 million. As I understand it, a draft contract has been circulated in the public. And I underline draft because that's obviously all subject to negotiations in a private sale such as this. But one of the terms in there was that the church was responsible for having permits issued to have the entire building demolished. Does not come before us, as it must. Does not come before the city for any demolition permits that I know of. But at least that preliminarily is what comes out of this document that has been circulated. That contract, when finally signed, may be entirely different. We don't know. But there is a threat to this building, and there's some public interest being generated, I understand, from a certain group. So, it's important. It's certainly an important building in what I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the city has denominated these areas the Cleveland Area Arts District. So certainly a historic structure like this would fit right in with that designation. So there's a lot of little pieces of this puzzle that are floating around. That's the lay of the land as far as I understand it.
All right, I'm going to open this up to public comment, and there's one person with his hand up, Jeff, no last name. Max, if you could bring Jeff in, please.
Be coming in just a second.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes, name and address for the record.
Hi, yes, my name is Jeff Spellman. I'm living at 1151 Gresham Road. And thank you for hearing me today. And from what you've said, both Bill and Larry, that's my understanding of the situation as it stands right now. I attended Grace for quite some number of years. I was married there, and I served for a good number of years as a church Carillioner. And I'm also part of, there's various conversations and groups that are quite interested in the preservation of the building. I had attended some town halls where the bishop of the Episcopal Diocese had promised to have some meetings about conflict resolution and things like this, because there's a lot of strife in the church about decisions that were being made. And then came as a surprise in the last month to understand that the church was under contract review to be sold without all these promised things. But that aside, the Carillon next year will be the 100th anniversary of the dedication. The Carillon was donated by the Pittis family. Many of you know Albert Pittis. It was his uncle who was quite involved in a lot of the property in downtown Plainfield. Donated the Carillon. The first 23 bells were installed in the 1920s. They're British bells. And in the 70s, the instrument was doubled in size. So now it's 47 bells, and they added French bells at the top. It's a nationally renowned instrument. I've reached out to the Guild of Carillonneurs to get some support so that Plainfield can understand the historical treasure. I would equate this with that we have the 100-year-old symphony. The bells were put in the same time and part of the rich history of Plainfield. There's been already somebody sent a beautiful letter, which the chairman here has been copied on that letter that's been sent to the mayor, economic development, to the bishop, to the church leadership, and parties concerned. And I've just encouraged this group of whatever we can do to make sure that there's proper protection of the building and at least good discussions, because a lot of these discussions have not been with the public. And I'm certainly thinking that there could be some creative opportunities as the site is considered for redevelopment of how preserving the historic part of the church could be done very tastefully with things to come. So I just thank you so much for hearing these concerns tonight, and encourage you to whatever advocacy this group is able to do, or whatever help you need from us for additional information or support. Thank you.
This took a bit of a new turn earlier today. I had indicated a couple of meetings back that I would write a letter to this gentleman named Ambos, he's a lawyer who's serving as legal advisor to the Episcopal Diocese of New Jersey, or whatever it is. And I needed to do a little research before I wrote it. And I guess there was a piece of me that didn't feel comfortable writing it, but I sat down and wrote it today. And I found we've got more problems than I thought we would in declaring that the church cannot do what they want to do. I would like to go over that with Larry and Chris, but we're not going to do it right now, obviously, sometime in the next few days. And at that point, is there any point to sending it? I don't know. I told them that the violation of our historic preservation ordinance has a penalty of $75 a day, being a continuing violation. Having removed these fine windows is why it could be viewed as something that just keeps happening day by day by day. And if it went on long enough, an owner that was really being recalcitrant might wind up not getting anything for selling the property because of the fines that have been assessed against it. I really don't know which way to go with this. I'd like to get some movement from the city first, but we don't always trust the powers that be at City Hall to bring us in on things when we think they should. So that's what's happening. Jeff, I have one question for you. Is the Carillon built in?
Yes, the front tower, the spire that you see there, there's a frame in there, and the 47 bells are mounted in the frame, so it's built into the tower. There were various trapdoors through the tower of how the bells were originally raised up there. It was interesting that the Albert's older twin brothers, who went to Princeton University, worked with the Carillon, or they were engineers, not musicians, and they figured out how to double the instrument in the same site. Bill, in the letter that I shared with you today, I'm happy if you want to share that with the rest of the members, and I have several links in there that includes pictures inside the tower. You can see what the bells look like. There's some video clips, etc. So please feel free to share that correspondence with the board members. It'll give more background information.
Well, is that, you're talking about the letter from Valerie or something else?
I responded this afternoon to Valerie's note with additional information, including pictures, links, etc. And that's the one that went out to the mayor and the bishop and all the people concerned. It was sent this afternoon.
Right. I'm not sure if I printed that out. So who wrote this?
I said I wrote that. You'll see an email from me today that I added additional information, which include links and pictures, and it might be helpful information if you'd like to share it with the other board members after the call.
You're referring to a letter from Robin Austin to the mayor and a number of other people.
And then I've responded to that too. So the one that you have from me has the response from Valerie. It's got the letter from Robin Austin, and it's got additional pictures, links. There's also a link to the history of the instrument. There's a lot of information in that. That just came this afternoon, maybe after you saw your mail.
Yeah. Who is Robin Austin?
Robin Austin is a nationwide known Carillioner. He served at Grace Church as Carillioner in the 1990s. I knew him from his time at Princeton University, where he was a chief Carillioner there. He's gone on to other places beyond that. And he's the one who wrote the history of the instrument. He met with the Pittis brothers, went back through all the documents through the 1920s. And if you scroll through that link there, there's a link in there that's got a link to the article that he had published. And there's a scholarly journal on Carillons that was published in, I think, in the late 90s.
All right. I see one other hand up. Max, let her in, please. Elizabeth Ferrone.
Would you like me to demote Jeff?
If you can keep him in, that's all right with me.
Okay.
Okay, unmute. There you go. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, so my name is Elizabeth Ferroni. I live at 320 West 38th Street in Manhattan.
All right.
I'm from Plainfield. And I just moved out of Plainfield a year ago, and I was in a state of shock when I saw that my brother-in-law was part of this sale.
Who's your brother-in-law?
Jason Algio. So Jason Algio told me, so I'm the person who saw the contract when it was as a draft, and I'm the one who disseminated it to everyone. I was told by Jason Algio a few days ago that on the signed agreement, it does call for demolition of the entire structure. And also, the plan is to, in the contract, it says that the Grace Church will get possession of everything that's in the interior to sell, the windows, the Carillon, the organ, whatever's in there, that they will sell that within a month's time, maybe 2 months' time. That's in the agreement that they will sell. So so we're all concerned about that incredible Carillon. $27,000 a year. It's kind of like a cost of doing business for the buyer. I don't think that's going to deter a buyer. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys are allowed to prevent demolition of the building. If
We're
you
not.
are, you're not.
Private property.
So they can demolish the entire building on the outside as well. It's a shame. That's all I can say. We need to start making laws federally and statewide that actually protect the churches, because there are so many churches that are being destroyed. Here's an option that I was wondering about. Is it possible? I know it would be so expensive, and I don't know how it would be funded, but I know that in the past churches have been moved from one location to another, and it would be very expensive. But that's the only solution I can see to preserving the church, is to actually move it instead of demolishing it.
That's an excellent point, but I don't know the answer to it. I mean, ultimately, the problem is that it's private property, and it's expensive private property to maintain. And if the diocese is going to get rid of it, then what do we do? A couple of possible things I could imagine. One is to keep some part of the building and allow the rest to be demolished and built on. We did that last year with the former YMCA, and I think we did it very successfully, although it hasn't been started yet. But that's a little different for two reasons. One is that the facade of the Y kind of lent itself to that. You could demolish everything behind it, build something new there, but leave the facade up. I don't know if that would make any sense with the church, big with a rose window, or the exterior features of it. And the other is to make them in some way include the building within whatever they build. But churches are a real problem, because, just think of it. You go in there and it's not like an office with 9-foot ceilings. You look up and it's probably 30 or 40 feet up, and it's empty space, which means that kind of building is almost impossible to convert to any other use. The only other idea I thought of has actually happened here in the last few years. When the former First Unitarian Church was about to close under very similar circumstances, the city actually bought the property and has turned it into the Plainfield Arts Center. But I cannot imagine them doing the same thing a second time.
Well, they said that they wouldn't.
Right.
When they were offered it. there's a lot of alternative uses that you could use that chapel for. I'm at a loss, and I don't know what to say to you guys. It's devastating to the community, and I think it's going to, I think it's going to, that this has happened. I think the people who are responsible for it are going to go down in history as being the destroyers of the building. They didn't have to make this choice. They could have sold it to another church, but really what it comes down to is they want the $5 million. And they really are, they're going to go down, all of them, everyone in the city, and the diocese, the bishop, Karen and Jason. There was dissent among the congregation, among the parishioners. They did not want to sell the building, and they were not given a choice to vote, even though they're supposed to vote. And then once it's in the hands of the bishop can become dictatorial. So he can actually make those choices once the building became, his property. The diocese.
This situation is actually very common.
I know it is.
And I gotta say, it only rarely works out to put the building to a different use. And there's always people that are angry about it, sooner or later.
It's not, but it's not acceptable. In Europe, they have, they do have laws that govern this, and they're not allowed, in many countries in Europe, they are not allowed to destroy churches. And we have been a very irresponsible country in that way. It's not acceptable. It's common. There's a lot of things that are common in our lives, but it's not acceptable to destroy beautiful architecture. And there are plenty of alternative uses that we could use it for. And I can come up with so many of them. All right. But anyway, I'm going to end, and we can. Is there anyone else that's raising their hand? I would hope that some more people would talk about it.
Okay.
Not that I can see.
No.
There would have to be a procedure followed, which I think has only come up once. Our ordinance has several sections in it that deal with the need to demolish, but they don't really address this. They were meant for a situation where the demolition is because of a structural problem. We had a property that was a separate historic landmark. We called it the Lampkin House over on Terrell Road, which was designated, but due to a variety of factors, there was damage there. A tree fell into it. A lot of damage occurred, and what was left of it was so dangerous. It was, you can't imagine children going in there to play, that our director of public works at the time just ordered the DPW staff to go and demolish it. And one day I get a call in the morning from Bill Neerstedt. Bill, you got to go over there. There's a bulldozer at work. So I went over there, and there was a bulldozer at work, but it was too late to change anything. But after that, we needed to delist the property so that the city could sell it. And they left it to me to figure out how to do that. So we did it. By that time, there were no alternatives. So that might happen here. But this is a little different because it's not, the place is not in bad shape.
Would you mind, Bill, if I did just one quick point?
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Gary, can we move on? This is beyond our control.
I agree.
I'm very sympathetic about the whole situation. I really am. And I wish there could be something done, but there's not. And the only way to do is protest against the church and not to us. So please, let's move on.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, I do not wish to move on. I have my hand up.
Go ahead.
Okay, both you, Gary, and Bill, with all due respect, are being very negative about this.
I'm not.
No, Bill particularly. Adaptive reuse. We saw it with the YMCA. You may be of the opinion that that lent itself to apartments because of the configuration of the building. Go up to New York City. These churches are turned into apartment buildings all the time. They put floors into the sanctuary. They become beautiful apartments with very unusual architecture and unusual windows. This can be done if someone wants to do it, and I think that someone is us first. But what they're proposing is 175 units of apartments, which you know what they're going to look like. They're going to look like the hardy board clad 1960s, 50s buildings that in 10 years will look like junk. So we cannot give up on saving a good piece of architecture that we have that's going to be in an important district for the city, right near downtown, right in near Cleveland Arts District, right near the train station. This is an important building. It can be reused. Is it going to be a church? No. Is it private property and the church is going to sell whatever they sell? Yes. Although the windows on the other side are still within our jurisdiction. So let's not be so down about this. This is something that's important for the historic fabric of the city, and it should not be dismissed so easily.
Well, all we can do is to keep our eyes and ears out, and if something comes our way that we think we can encourage, maybe we've got an opportunity to do that. But
May I say one more thing?
Sure.
I think it's the responsibility of your commission to encourage all the churches in Plainfield to, if they have the money, and Grace Episcopal had the money, they have more than $600,000. That doesn't include how much they have from selling the windows. For them to bring in partners for sacred places. They're really good at transitioning. They've been so successful nationwide. And I think that's an error. I have to say, Mr. Mickelson, I think it's been irresponsible of you not have done that up until this point. I really condemn the commission for not having done that. I think it's something you should have done.
Jurisdiction.
It is. You can, as a historic
There is no
preservation
application
commission,
pending.
you can encourage people. You can encourage the people to. You can. There's nothing holding you back from encouraging people to do the right thing. Not a damn thing is holding you back from doing that. Don't say it's outside of your purview. It's not. It is your responsibility. And I'm going to hang up now. Because I'm getting furious with you. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to mute myself. I'm muting myself.
Good. Let's make an agenda out of this and once to move forward. But it's not on our agenda. Conversation has been going on. People is getting heated, and we're back where we were a couple months ago. Put it on the agenda and let's discuss it then. But it's not on the agenda.
Well, what I meant is there's no application before us.
Exactly.
But it was on our agenda, Gary.
Okay.
Bill
But
put
there's
it
no
on our
application.
Bill put it on our agenda as a discussion item.
It is a discussion item. It's not an item for action.
Yeah, can I just briefly just say I'm really in support of what Larry said. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I've seen incredible adaptive reuse of churches, as he says, inserting floors in the sanctuary. Usually in that case, especially with a pitched roof, you grant them some leeway with windows to make more livable units upstairs. And I think the rear building, which is, potentially a non-contributing building, removing that and using that as an opportunity to bulk up whatever masking you need there, as long as it's a reasonable scale. I think we should not have the position that there are not plenty of financially viable uses for this building. And I think we should keep that fight, even if we lose it. But just taking the position that there's nothing we can do because the building can't be reused is totally inappropriate.
That would be wonderful. Finding somebody that wants to put it to a readaptive use, though, is a very difficult thing. All right.
It's done all the time, Bill. It's done all the time. I understand churches come down all the time, but churches are also reused all the time.
I'd like to go look at the place because I haven't been in there in years and I don't really understand the stuff with the windows. All right. There's one other hand up. I'll just call on very briefly. Virginia, come on in. Miss Carol. Unmute and name and address for the record.
Okay. Hi, I'm Virginia Carroll from 1300 Prospect Avenue here in Plainfield. And, I wasn't planning to speak about this. But I've watched this redevelopment going on through Plainfield, and it's changing the look of every historic element that is around us that is beautiful. So I guess I really wanted to say just quickly to Larry's point and to Elizabeth's point and Jeff's point, what can we do as a community to stop this? I really don't know. I think you guys as a commission do a very valuable service for the city of Plainfield and its historic preservation, but something is so off here. I feel like we're being steamrolled through with apartments everywhere. And it's really a shame once this stuff is gone, it's gone. That old Carillon and the beautiful stone building and the windows, they're just parts of what's being destroyed throughout the city. Anyway, I don't know how we can stop this. And I don't know if you guys have any solutions at all, but I just wanted to make my voice heard as a concerned citizen, because once these things are gone, there's no getting them back. Anyway.
Yeah, anything that anyone can think of to get a little publicity on this. Letters to the editor, get it into TAPinto, for instance. I very much encourage that, but we're a little more limited because there isn't anything pending right now in which we have jurisdiction to rule. So I'm going to keep my eyes and ears open for opportunities to try to speak up for preserving whatever can be preserved. And I'd like everybody else to do exactly the same. And as for the immediate problem, which was stripping the building of windows, we're going to talk about that over the next few days, me, Larry, and Chris, to see if there's any way of making the statement that's safe for us to make. All right, I think that's enough for this case.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else that wants to be heard on anything? No hands up, perfect. All right, let's do this. I think we can adjourn our public session. And Barton, the floor is going to you to go through the directions that we're required to give in order to keep our CLG status.